Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Brilliance in Commerce show today with Mark Emery. We are doing a private program on asset management and private banking and cryptocurrencies. And we have the great privilege of Mark Emery as our guest speaker today. This is Taansen Farimont. I'm the founder of Brilliance in Commerce. Today is Tuesday, February 27th, 2018. And I'd like to share with you just a little about Mark. He's one of the greatest masters, in my humble opinion, of asset protection, individual sovereignty, personal legal status, estate planning, investment management, international diversification, and freedom technology in the Western world. As you know, I've been around this field more or less full-time since 1990 and have become acquainted with thousands of teachers and service providers in the freedom arena. Mark is right up there in the top 2% or 1%. And on top of it all, he's a nice guy, something even more rare, especially in the battle-scarred legal circles. I have personally seen him helping solve people's legal problems, delivering them from struggle and victimhood. He's mastered the PT, private legal status, and is a living example of its benefits. Living in beautiful homes overlooking the ocean, enjoying true freedom and sharing it with others. PT stands for perpetual traveler, permanent tourist, prior taxpayer, passing through, prepared thoroughly, and so on. This is an international status that utilizes multiple passports so that wherever one happens to be, one is a tourist and thus not subject to the local laws. Mark Emery has a broad background in international business and finance, has a degree in business administration, specializing in international business and language area studies. He's lived in the USA, France, Costa Rica, and now Panama, and has been involved in international business, marketing, and finance since 1975. He speaks 3 languages. He is an author, an educator, an entrepreneur, and financial consultant teaching advanced concepts in business and finance. He established a credit union in Sweden from scratch, with international clientele starting with minimum accounts of $100,000 or more. He was also involved in setting up a bank in Bahrain. He is author of books such as one, Matt Freeman's War in the Second American Revolution, How I Beat Satan and the IRS, and various teaching texts, websites, and seminars. He was the top Forex trader in Latin America for Kerford Investments International, where he managed a trading office and taught trading to clients in addition to professionally managing client accounts for growth. He is the creator and developer of the P.A.M. private asset management system. Currently, he is also the director of the Lighthouse Law Club and Monaco Management Group. In November 2017, he named yours truly as a member of the board of advisors of Monaco Management Group. Great honor, I may say. Major project funding and high net worth tax reduction are described in Mark's 28-minute YouTube video about Avitance Consulting. This is of particular interest for wealth managers. So bic-lighthouse.com is the link to connect with Mark and all of his activities. BIC, as in Brilliance in Commerce, dash Lighthouse, LIGHTHOUSE.com. Monaco Management Group is for more specialized consultation for high net worth individuals, customized for their needs in the fields of wealth preservation, state-of-the-art privacy methods, international business strategizing, and world-class asset protection. If you are a networker and would like to join as an affiliate, you can get that procedure as well. If approved, you would be an affiliate in the BIC group for Mark's concierge of projects in his multi-tier affiliate system. So without further ado, let me introduce you to Mark Emery.
Thank you, Taansen. I never had an introduction like that, so thank you very much. Let me just add 2 more points to that list you went through. When I was a younger guy, I was also very active in drinking beer and chasing girls. So pretty much just a normal guy, despite all appearances. Always had a passion for freedom and an extreme distaste for abuse, bullying, and tyranny. And the older I got, the more of that I saw. And so that really lit a fire basically in my heart to develop the passion that I have for freedom, helping people achieve that freedom. So I've been blessed in many ways and fortunate to learn a lot of things in my life experience. And so my vocation right now is to share that with people and help others go down the same path, albeit with a little bit of help and eliminating a lot of the trial and error. So that's why I'm here. I'm here in the hopes that you'll be able to benefit from the things that I've learned and the people around me that I've pulled together, like Taansen. And together, we all can create synergy, helping each other advance to achieve a level of freedom in a world that really is no longer free, right? So let's get right down to the brass tacks here tonight. We're talking about private asset management. I frequently say that if you don't have privacy, it's impossible to achieve freedom because someone always has something over you. They've got leverage over you, all right? And the old, you hear everybody say it these days in the politically correct world, well, you know, if you don't have anything to hide, why would you want privacy? And I tell people right off, I've got everything to hide. Doesn't mean I'm doing anything wrong, but my business is none of your business. And your business is none of my business, other than what we want to share with each other. All right. And that's the bottom line. But things are changing in this politically correct world. And because of that, I've been working hard to put together systems, training, education, tools to help us preserve that freedom. So let's jump right into that. All right. We're going to look at a safe alternative to banking. And there's two organizations that I associate with. Monaco Management Group is a higher level international financial consulting group dealing more with more sophisticated solutions for high net worth individuals. And we use the Lighthouse Law Club as the delivery platform for much of what Monaco Management can offer. All right. So Lighthouse is let's just look at it as the delivery boy. Okay, we have a tremendous infrastructure set up in the law club to deliver education and knowledge and share that amongst ourselves. Okay, so the two work hand in hand very well together, just so you have an idea of that relationship. So let's talk a little bit about today's predators. Everywhere you look, people are out looking to steal stuff, right? The courts, they're stealing stuff from people every day. Attorneys, lawsuits, taxman, hackers, thieves everywhere. And the thieves you really have to worry about are not the ones on the street. Sure, lock your car, but that's not what you have to worry about. You got to worry about the thieves in ties, right? We have to accept the fact that in today's world, with the level of debt that governments carry, all governments are bankrupt. Just flat out bankrupt. They can't pay their obligations. So what do? They go around devouring whatever assets they can find, all right? Unconscionable tax collection activities. You've got overreaching lawsuits to worry about, overzealous prosecutors who are just looking to make a name for themselves. And you should be well aware that prosecutors have no desire to seek justice, right? They're there to earn career points, to get on the sales leaderboard in their back office and earn points to advance their career. And of course, generate business for their boss, the government. So it's a business as usual court system, routinely conducting warrantless searches. Asset seizure and forfeiture is a new legal concept that you don't have to be guilty of anything. You know, if drug dealers stand on the corner of one of your properties in town and do a drug deal, you could lose that property because the property was guilty for hosting those drug dealers. for being a refuge for those drug dealers, okay? It's just completely upside down and backwards. All right, a lot of people think, well, I don't have anything to worry about. I keep a low profile. Oh, yeah? Think about it. Think again. These predators are out looking for business to generate for themselves. And when they bring you into court, they can create bonds that are traded on the marketplace worth millions. Doesn't matter what your case is. You're going down the tubes. They're going to create those bonds. They need that to float the debt that they've created. You know all about that. I'm not going to spend more time on that. All right, you've heard about bank bail-ins and client haircuts. And we're not talking about the beauty salon, right? We're talking about taking a financial haircut for simply having the privilege of keeping your money in the bank. We'll talk about that in a minute. We're seeing increasing capital controls. If you've tried to purchase cryptocurrencies, you know about that. You get a new wallet all set up and bada bing, bada boom. Whoops. The limit you have is $200 a week. That's the most you can purchase. You know, you probably dealt with that before. There's banks now in the United States that are telling their clients, oh, no, you can't send an international wire transfer. We don't do that anymore. I've heard that happen several years ago. So you see these capital controls coming into place in all kinds of forms and fashions. And of course, you know, we've got unrestrained surveillance, data collection. Again, if you don't have privacy, you can't have freedom. Forget about it, right? And so with your banks, you've got suspicious activity reports that get filed, and now they've intimidated the banks to the point where these reports are being filed, whether it's suspicious activity or not. You know, there's a trigger. If there's a cash transaction over $3,000, let's say you want to buy a used car. You pull out $4,000, guess what? You've got an SAR going into FinCEN, Financial Crimes Enforcement Network. Now you're on the criminal database, potentially criminal database. It's just absolutely ridiculous. FATCA is absolutely a horrific law in the United States. The Financial Accounting and Tax Compliance Act. Let me say that again. The Financial Account and Tax Compliance Act, which basically forces banks around the world to spy on their clients who hold U.S. passports. I was in Chile opening a bank account not too long ago, and the first thing they do is they hand me a bunch of IRS forms to fill out. I'm like, what? And how do they do that? How can the Federal Reserve control banks around the world? Well, all worldwide banks use clearing banks, intermediary banks in New York or in the U.S. to handle their U.S. dollar transactions. Okay, everything goes through the U.S. through an intermediary bank. And U.S. authorities say, well, if you want to continue to use these intermediary banks, you're going to comply with FATCA. Otherwise, we're just going to withhold 30% of every transfer that comes through, and you can try and claim it later. Yeah, good luck, okay? Don't get me off on that. Point being, there's a lot to be aware of. Most people are not aware of these things, and you don't need to be a criminal to be watched and taken a look at, okay? So I mentioned FinCEN. As you might imagine, I've developed quite a passion for going after the bankers. If you ever have been to our YouTube channel for the Lighthouse Law Club, I've got a series of videos called Run Bankers Run. And there's 7 videos. In fact, one of those videos is a webinar that we did, Taansen did with us on the debt scenario. But this series of videos, I expose much of the fraud that's going on and what people are actually doing about it. And I hope that you're aware of the fact that it's the bankers that cause wars. They fund both sides of the wars. They try to start the wars, fund the wars on both sides. And no matter which side wins, guess what? They now have political control, financial monopoly, forcing countries into debt to be their puppets. So the bankers are the puppet masters, and in my view, are the cause of a very large portion of all of the grief and despair in this world today. So I'm on a rant exposing the bankers, and that's a large part of what I do, and helping to create alternatives from these SOBs, okay? You've heard of bank bail-ins. How you and your money will be parted during the next banking crisis is this article. And if you're not familiar, the governments of the world have basically said they will no longer be bailing out the banks like they did in the 2008 crisis. And so laws have changed so that when you deposit funds into your bank, you are considered no more than an unsecured creditor. Those are no longer your funds. You put it on deposit in your account. You think it's your funds, right? No, not anymore. Those are now the bank's funds, and you are an unsecured creditor to the bank. And if the bank is insolvent and needs to use those funds, guess what? You don't have them on deposit anymore. We've already seen that happen, starting with Cyprus and then various banks throughout Europe, and it will be happening in the US. Okay, so is your money safe in the banks with this new bail-in strategy to maintain the solvency and operational capacity for these banks? And knowing that they're operating on razor-thin margins, and knowing the situation with Deutsche Bank in Germany, which is sitting on top of a huge pile of derivatives. Deutsche Bank would have gone under by now had they not been propped up by huge Chinese cash infusions. All right. And there's a lot of talk right now about Deutsche Bank. Why is Deutsche Bank important? Because Deutsche Bank has their tentacles in virtually every bank in the world. And when Deutsche Bank goes down, it's going to be a domino effect. Okay, do some research on Deutsche Bank. There's a lot of current news available on that. Okay, I mentioned that the government are not going to be bailing the banks out, but the banks will be seizing deposits during the crisis. And of course, all we hear is, "Oh, everything's fine. You know, the economy's doing good. Banks are solvent, and all this kind of stuff." They're now in a position where they can freeze accounts and use your savings to prop these banks up, as we've been talking about. Okay, so here's U.S. News and World Report. Is your money safe in too big to fail bank? Unfortunately, the combined wealth of shareholders and bondholders probably won't be enough to cover a major meltdown. The next crisis, when it occurs, is likely to be due to the derivatives trade, and the amount of derivatives in play are staggering. The exposure in derivatives at the too big to fail banks exceeds the total world's gross domestic product. So a derivatives-led meltdown could quickly overwhelm the funds available from banks, stock, and bond holders. Okay, so who's going to pay? Account holders will. Excuse me, I'm battling a terrible cold, and I may have to pause briefly to cough or sneeze from time to time. Bear with me. All right, so that gives you an idea what's going on there. Now, it's just an isolated, secluded situation with a couple of banks? No. Do your own search. Do a search for banking crisis, banking collapse. See what you get. Articles, current and from many, many sources worldwide. Do your own research. You hear it going around all the time about the impending collapse. So this is not a secret, all right? And I'm sure most of you have probably already been aware of this. Here's InfoWars. Economic collapse is erupting all over the planet as global leaders begin to panic. All right, and that was a couple years ago. All right, so let's look at US dollar denominated assets. You've likely seen this chart before. It goes back 100 years to when the Federal Reserve was created, and you can clearly see the purchasing power, or what has happened to your purchasing power in the last 100 years. Right now, we're at about 4 cents of purchasing power compared to what it was 100 years ago when the Federal Reserve was created. So how's that Federal Reserve working out for you? All right. Anything that you do in dollar-denominated assets or euro-denominated assets or fiat currency-denominated assets has a similar curve. Inflation. Inflation is the hidden tax, and that's one of the primary factors that causes this to happen. All right, so if you're going to have assets, you want to have those assets held in US dollar denominated configurations. This is what's happening to it. All right, so you might want to rethink your strategy. Let's talk about alternative assets. You know, typically they would appreciate rather than consistently depreciate. All right, we're talking about appreciable assets rather than depreciating assets. They're not typically monitored and controlled by a central authority. They're able to be held or stored in a physical location. They're much less likely to be tracked, seized, liened, or garnished. And they're almost never subject to taxation. They are a truer representation of a real free market, okay, that's not manipulated, that's not controlled, it's not subject to all of the interferences that are driving forces in certain directions, okay? And alternative assets are more easily carried or transferred across borders privately. So Taansen mentioned the PT concept, that if you are moving about internationally, this can be a very safe and private way to move assets that are not fiat denominated, okay? So as an alternative asset, let's look at this trend in cryptocurrencies, okay? This is market capitalization, and people are only just beginning to realize the benefits and the potential of cryptocurrency as an asset class. All right, the crypto space has only just scratched the surface. All right, we'll talk more about that in a couple minutes. Another alternative asset, precious metals, gold, silver. You can see, I remember not too long ago when I was living in Costa Rica talking about buying gold at about $300. Look where it is now. Now it's been fairly stable the last few years, and that's why people invest in gold, for its stability. Typically, you don't buy gold to make a profit. You buy gold to hold your value, that you're not going to lose the value as you are in, for example, US dollar denominated assets. And you can see here, it's held that value very well over the years. So to compare one against the other, you know, this begs the question. If you had an asset portfolio, which chart would you like to use to guide you into placing your assets into a portfolio? US dollar denominated assets or alternative assets? Okay, which growth curve would you prefer to be involved in? All right, not much of a decision, is it? All right, it's pretty obvious. So let's talk a little bit about the solution that we offer here, the private asset management system. We start with private trust accounts. And those of you who are clients of Taansen understand very well the value of a private trust and how to operate in one. And to do so basically changes your whole modus operandi as it relates to just dropping off of the radar in many cases. You stop doing business in your personal name, you start operating through the trust and the trust accounts. Our system relies on that very same principle. And we take it to a new level by creating international holdings, an international portfolio of alternative assets. All right, and those assets, again, cryptocurrencies, precious metals, tokens in new technologies, vested holdings in new technologies in the blockchain and hashgraph, things that are coming out. This is the new paradigm. These are the new rising stars in the financial world. All right, appreciable assets. Remember, appreciable assets, not depreciable. And so this system is set up for long-term wealth building. It's not set up so much for a lot of daily in and out activity as a local bank account would be. It's not designed to replace that. It's designed to be a safe and secure store for holding appreciable assets for the long term, so that you can have a family heirloom for your kids, which is something probably most of us did not have much of from our parents because they were on the corporate treadmill. All right. And then, of course, it's important to have short-term liquidity for business management. All right. And those are things that can be arranged with the P.A.M system. All right. So these are just some of the key characteristics, and we'll drill down on that a little bit. All right. So private means private. What is it about private someone doesn't understand? Private is a nice way of saying, hey, this is none of your business. Okay. So let's just be clear. And in the P.A.M system, that's exactly what we're talking about, because it's fully secure with multiple layers of security with checks and balances. All right. So that there's security all around, and that you would have a level of comfort knowing what those checks and balances are, to keep everything transparent, out in the open as far as you're concerned, yet private to the rest of the world. Okay. So there's full recourse there. And what we set up here is recognized in the international financial arena as a non-bank financial institution by definition of the World Bank. All right. And we've got other presentations that will drill down on that a little bit. You can look that up yourself. Some interesting articles on non-bank financial institutions, basically filling needs that banks do not fulfill. All right. And so I'll just leave it at that for now. Now, as you know, trust assets are non-reportable on your balance sheet. Why? Because they're not yours. They belong to the trust. So those assets are not yours anymore. You've severed the cord. Okay. And the key to asset management could not be any simpler. I refer back to, you probably remember Janis Joplin's old song in the 60s, that freedom is just another word for nothing left to lose. So we learn to be a pauper on paper, yet live like a king. All right. That's a simple concept to grasp, I think. And so the question is, how do you do that? Right. Well, that's what we get into. All right. So the P.A.M almost completely eliminates, well, it does completely eliminate all probate and estate taxes. That is nothing but an organized theft ring run by a bunch of criminals. If you have any experience with probate, you know the attorneys and the judges will milk that estate until there is nothing left. And then when they're finally through, they'll give you your check for $17.23 and say, thank you very much. This eliminates taxes on the gains of appreciable assets. And that can be huge. That can be huge. A big game changer. All right. Eliminates reporting. Well, you can't report on things that are not yours, right? All right. The risks of any bank crisis or dollar collapse are also eliminated. Why? Because we keep our exposure to banks at a low minimum. And we're dealing in alternative assets, not dollar-denominated assets. Okay, so when you hear all this talk about the impending collapse of the dollar, the global currency reset, the banking crisis, the financial collapse, you're going to collapse the markets and blame Trump, all this talk would be completely irrelevant if you were properly positioned in a situation such as we're discussing here. And then business succession issues are solved there. What I'm talking about, if you own and run a family business, typically business owners have everything in their own name. And if they die, guess what? It has to be transferred out of their name and transferred to somebody else. And that's where the taxes come into play on the transfer. It's not because someone died. Taxes aren't laid because they died. It's based on the transfer. And if everything is in trust, then there is no transfer and thus no taxes. Amazing. Now, our clients have access to manage their portfolios of appreciable assets using an online banking software that is it's used by a number of banks. I have a close personal relationship with the developers of this software, been using them for years, and just great people to work with. Very functional, very robust system. This offers military grade security. There's a complete audit trail for each and every transaction, cannot be tampered with. So you've got instant accounting 24/7. And this is not available to the public. You know, we only deal in a closed circle within our membership only. Okay, so this is not promoted to the public. That's a security feature in and of itself. Okay, but this gives you an idea what you might be looking at in your portfolio when you log in. You might have a cash account in US dollars, you might have cash in euros, you could have Bitcoin, different forms of bullion, gold, silver, access to a debit card account to have direct access to some liquidity there for whatever purposes, just like any bank would offer you, although perhaps a bit more secure and a bit more stable in terms of the portfolio that's involved, not dealing solely in depreciable assets and fiat currency. Now, here's an interesting thing that has come up just recently, that we can now offer our members a private check cashing service, which is fantastic. It deals only with U.S. checks. It completely avoids the local bank. So maybe you're out there, working and doing trade in the community, and you've decided you just want to avoid your local bank altogether, or at least minimize your profile, right? This avoids the local bank altogether because the funds never touch your local bank account. You have private access to those funds, which are safe, secure, and again, nobody else's business. Here's how it works in a nutshell. So the guy issuing you the check for your work, in step one, check goes to you. Step two, you send the check to the check cashing agent. It's green because it's an international company, not in the U.S. That company has a relationship with a U.S. check processor. They're in the U.S., so the processor actually does process the check, gets the money, and puts it on the account of the agent, the international agent. That international agent then can put that funding directly onto a debit card where you can access it directly, or it can go onto the trust account that you are associated with, or it could be split up between the two. So here's a channel for you to receive funds, have them placed in an international trust account and debit card, and completely avoid your lonely banker who's sitting there up in the corner, not even involved in this process. Okay? You like that? We're making progress, folks. Run, bankers, run. We got your number. We're coming for you, your history. So who can benefit from this? Obviously, business owners and entrepreneurs who are engaged in the commercial world out there, busy professionals, corporate managers, family business managers, and I'm just talking about families who have to manage their own business, right? And estate planners, that's you again too, managing your own estate, trying to create something to leave for your children, manage emergencies, and just basically take care of things with or without you. And basically anyone with cash flow and assets to protect, all right, can benefit greatly from this system. So this is our public introduction. We have a lot more information that is private, and we get into much more detail into the schematics on how things work. I'll pause here, take a few questions, and this will be the end of part one. And once we handle any questions on this, we can move on to a 9-minute video that I have that I think you will appreciate, that will drill down on some of these points that I've just covered. Okay? So let me get off of the screen sharing here. And Taansen, are you still with me? Let's entertain some comments and questions.
Awesome, beautiful, magnificent, impressive. Thank you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, you hopefully received the newsletter in which How to Raise Your Hand was reviewed. If you're viewing this by computer, look for the raise hand icon to click on. And if you're by telephone, that would be, I think it's *9. Press *9 on your phone. So if you have questions, now is the time to raise your hand. And June, I am going to unmute you. You have your hand up. June, you're on the air. Would you like to ask your question?
Good evening, everyone, and thank you so very much for this wonderful, wonderful seminar.
Welcome.
My question concerns cryptocurrency. I really believe in it, but a lot of my friends have said, well, it's sort of like fiat currency because it has no tangible value other than the value that's assigned to it. How can I respond to them concerning that and cryptocurrency, its value and its progression for the future?
I'll answer that, Taansen. Basically, cryptocurrency does have intrinsic value. We cannot create unlimited cryptocurrency like the central bankers do with fiat currency, okay? It takes time, it takes energy. I mean, real energy, a lot of electricity to generate the algorithms necessary to create one particular crypto coin and all the algorithms that are involved in that. It's unique. Each crypto coin is unique and it's transparent. It can be on the blockchain can be independently verified as to where it came from and what path it has followed, perhaps even in ownership. So huge difference. There's a lot of intrinsic value in the cryptocurrency just based on the energy, the time, and the algorithms that are required to go into it. And that's a world of difference from fiat currency, which is just printed, like making copies on a copy machine. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
We can probably dig down on that a little bit, but that would be probably the short answer.
Where would you suggest people go for the deeper and more extensive explanation?
YouTube. There are tons of videos all over the place on the subject.
Anything within your family of organizations?
We don't really get into the technical aspects of cryptocurrencies. I'm a very practical guy, and I stick more with the practical solutions that we're working on to really help people. Getting into all the technical caves of the production of the coin, that's just not something we spend a lot of time on ourselves.
I did see that you had sent an email or two recommending investment in a particular coin a couple months ago. Is that for members of Lighthouse Law Club?
Yeah, in fact, we're in the process of setting up an investment club, which would allow people with, that don't have huge amounts of money to invest and time to investigate all these things. The club will, in fact, present various opportunities that members have researched, bring it up for discussion, and then perhaps a vote as to whether they want to participate in that as a group. And so by being a part of the club, you'd be able to achieve a level of diversification with a smaller amount that you'd never be able to do on your own. Let's just say a couple $100. So that's an interesting aspect that we're developing there.
June, does that answer your question for now?
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Okay, let's move on to the next one. And Steve, you have submitted a chat question. In a trust, are the trustees exposed as they are the signatories on the account? I can answer that. It's basically no, especially in our House of Freedom International Law, Natural Law Trust. I would imagine you would say similarly.
Yes, absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
No, you have separate ownership. The trustees are only owners in their title or role as trustee, but the trust itself owns the assets. So no, a trustee cannot be held liable personally for the affairs of the trust. Next, Medved. Do you think the gold-backed cryptos will take down the regular cryptocurrencies because of the propaganda that could influence the public in embracing the coming gold-backed ones?
Well, that certainly makes an interesting proposition, doesn't it? And you have to understand that many of these cryptocurrencies are backed by a product, a technology, a company. Companies are now doing initial coin offerings instead of IPOs, initial public offerings to sell stock. They're offering coins, and those coins basically represent an ownership position in the company in one way, shape, or form or another. And so, whether a coin is backed by a company which has a unique specific technology or a unique application that could be highly attractive to the marketplace, or just by gold, I think most of them are backed in one way, shape, or form. And, only time will tell, really, as to how the market is going to shake out on some of these things. I don't get into the business of doing prognostications in the crypto world. I look a lot to people like Cliff High and a lot of other people, Jeff Berwick, and people that really focus, their full-time energy on this kind of thing. I'm more into the privacy and protection. So, I don't get into the prognostication so much, but I'm intrigued by the idea of a gold-backed cryptocurrency for sure.
I'll just add that there is a set of 3 criteria that James Altucher suggests. He's one of the country's experts in cryptocurrencies. He said 98 to 99% of the new cryptocurrencies out there are scams or failures, not worth investing in. But the few that he does feel are good solve what he calls the 3 problems or the 3 goals. One of the criteria being that it does something that the previous currencies did not do. Either Federal Reserve notes didn't do, or what Bitcoin didn't do. A new currency attempts to solve problems that the other currencies had. So that's one of his criteria, and he has a couple others, but I'll let you continue, Mark.
Okay. Any other comments or questions?
Don't see any at the moment.
Okay. We'll move on. I'm going to play a video that I just published this week, and I think it will highlight some things for you. We'll get more into discussing cryptocurrencies and how that relates to the private asset management system. Okay, so let's see if we can get that going here. Hi folks, I'm Mark Emery with the Monaco Management Group, and in the next few minutes we're going to talk about some cutting-edge freedom technology as it relates to the crypto space, a fast-moving industry where things are happening rapidly every day. If you've got a portfolio, whether small, medium, or large, it doesn't matter what size, you're going to need to be able to stay 3 steps ahead of this rapidly changing environment and the regulations that are coming upon us, okay? You're going to need to stay 3 steps ahead in order to stay safe, secure, and profitable, unhindered by the central bankers and their government minions who are quickly catching up to the pace of development and deployment of these new technologies. So in the next couple of minutes,
we're going to talk real quick about the burgeoning opportunities that exist in this space. Secondly, how the regulators are catching up with the industry, which is posing some problems for everybody involved. And with those problems in mind, of course, we're going to talk about some solutions on what we can do about that, okay? You know, there's so much activity in the blockchain and now the hash graph sectors of the market. It's really almost impossible to keep up with it all. Currently, there's somewhere in the neighborhood of 1,500 cryptocurrencies, which are being traded on about 9,000 different markets and exchanges. Market capitalization is in excess of $500 billion, and we're only just scratching the surface. Estimates are that the early adopters that are involved in this activity are only about 1% of the population. Reliable estimates from experts indicate that in the next year or two, that 1 to 2% figure is going to change and grow to up to 13% of the population who will be actively involved in cryptocurrencies. That's a huge move, okay? The regulators, the central bankers, and their minions, they're watching this, and they're saying, holy crap, what are we going to do? How are we going to get a piece of this? And how are we going to keep control of these people? It's a major issue. And of course, this is going to bring increased monitoring, control, taxation, extortion, and it all comes under the guise of, well, we have to protect the investors. As if you can't make your own decisions and know what's best for you. And so that's what it's coming down to it. You know, the old way of doing things, the establishment, right? It's crumbling before our very eyes. It's an amazing thing to watch, and they're becoming irrelevant. Did you know that in 2017, last year, there was more money raised with initial coin offerings, ICOs, than there was on Wall Street with IPOs, initial public offerings, selling stock in new companies? Okay, so there's more money. Nobody's doing IPOs anymore. People are raising money with ICOs. Unregulated, uncontrolled, Wall Street and the bankers are becoming irrelevant. This is huge, and the regulators are in a total panic over this issue. So let's take a look at what's going on in the regulatory environment. The new tax law in the United States has recently been signed into law just before Christmas 2017. And what had previously been exemptions to capital gains in the 1031 exchange, if you're familiar with that, is now gone. So in other words, before you used to be able to exchange one property for another property and not have to pay capital gains. So in this context, we're talking about exchanging, let's say, Bitcoin for Ethereum. Okay, previously that was exempt from capital gains. Well, not anymore. Now the capital gains taxes will apply, which means that if you're an active trader in any cryptocurrencies, every single trade you do is going to be subject to capital gains, which means you're going to have to monitor, control, analyze each single transaction that you do. And for most active traders, what does that mean? It's impossible. They can't do it. Okay, without significant, heavy compliance cost in time, money, energy, accounting. And then after all that, then you pay your taxes. It's crazy. Okay, so that's gone. This oppressive compliance is a direct threat to your profitability, and it's intensely invasive to your financial privacy. And since most people are not even going to attempt to do this, what does it do? It makes you a criminal. How do you like that? What's legal one day makes you a criminal if you continue to do it the next day. All right, let's look at the IRS in the United States. Last year, they made a demand upon the US-based exchange Coinbase to turn over the account information on over 400,000 US clients. Coinbase fought them, to their credit, but they still ended up turning over a large number of accounts. Okay, this is the type of thing that we can expect. The UK and the EU plan a crackdown on cryptocurrency trading this year. Okay, South Korea, where cryptocurrencies are hugely popular and well accepted in the marketplace, are banning virtual accounts in the exchanges, okay, used for the cryptocurrency exchanges. And they have completely regulated cryptocurrency activity. Vietnam and China have outlawed cryptocurrencies and ICOs. All right, so that's out of the question in those markets. And after a huge heist, Japan is watching very closely the activity that goes on in the cryptocurrency trading platforms. Now Russia has banned cryptocurrency trading. They're going to lift that ban only to replace it with new laws that require controlled trading in approved exchanges. And you know what that means, right? So you see the writing on the wall, don't you? This dream of operating completely free in an unregulated, tax-free, anonymous environment where you can build your financial and business empire unhindered is quickly evaporating. You can see that, right? So what do? Can you do anything about it? All right? And I'm here to say yes. You have available to you a very unique and highly effective solution which will provide absolute anonymity as it relates to your portfolio holdings, which means you don't report to anyone. It provides absolute security, knowing that your portfolio is safe and secure at all times. It provides unfettered international access, where no matter where in the world is an ICO or exchange or cryptocurrency, you will not be discriminated against based on where you live or what passport you carry. That's important. And it provides absolute protection from seizures, intrusion, lawsuits, taxation, other forms of distraint and extortion. It's the complete solution for long-term, unhindered asset growth, protection, and prosperity. And here's what you need to do to learn more. Go to privatebusiness.biz, that's B-I-Z, privatebusiness.biz. Here you're going to see a series of highly educational and informative videos which will bring you up to speed on the leading edge freedom technology that we can provide in this arena, where you'll be able to grow and prosper free and unhindered to build your business and financial empire without a lot of the headaches, distractions, and oppressive compliance requirements that we've talked about. I look forward to seeing you in the international arena. Bye for now.
And there we are.
How's it going, guys? It's the Crypto Oracle here, and today we're just going to be talking crypto. Obviously, the market's been pretty frantic the past.
So, Taansen, you still with me?
Yes, yes, fantastic, beautiful, well made. Thank you. Where do I sign up?
Well, there's a lot to learn, from the average guy on the street, and it's not terribly difficult. Just like the trust that you do and the education you do, it just takes a desire to learn how to operate in a different manner. And unfortunately, a lot of people don't take the time or the interest to set themselves up properly. And every day, I get emails from people. Oh, Mark, I've got a crisis. They're taking me to the gallows. What should I do? And it's a little bit late in cases like that. So we need to think ahead and plan ahead. Understand the dangers that lurk around us. And especially for people that are working hard to build a future, no matter what stage of that building that you might be in, even if you're just beginning and you don't have a whole lot to work with, setting up the proper infrastructure is critically important so that you can grow that much faster and achieve your goals that much quicker. So don't wait until it's broke before you try to fix it, is my point. So we'll entertain comments or questions on that, and I'll put it back in your hands, Taansen.
Okay, there are a couple of questions that have come up in the chat. Now, these do not pertain directly to the P.A.M system. However, everyone, if you do have questions specifically about the private asset management system, those would be welcome now, but perhaps this is related in a way. Rain Spirit says, is perpetual traveler different from changing one's status, like with the straw man?
Yes, it is. Perpetual traveler concept is real simple. It's setting yourself up under the 5 flag theory. Make a note of that, look it up, so that no matter where you are, you appear as though you're from somewhere else. So just real quick, let's say you carry a U.S. passport, but you get residency in Costa Rica. You set up a business in Nevis. That business has banking in Belize, and you like to spend your time in Panama. Okay, so if you're in Nevis taking care of your business and someone wants to attack you there, guess what? Your banking is in Belize, so they can't touch your banking. If you're home where you carry your passport, your residency is in Costa Rica, so you whip out your Costa Rica papers and the cop says, oh, you're not a citizen doing business in the state of, so we don't have a contract with you. Very good, go on about your way, have a nice day. And oh, by the way, next time you're coming through town, just slow down a little bit. I personally had that experience. So no matter where you are, you appear as though you're from somewhere else. So that's the PT concept.
Okay, fantastic. That's a nice summary, well spoken. The next question is, will the P.A.M system, or with the P.A.M system, do we hold our assets with a trusted broker and give you trading authority, or do you control both the assets and also the trading?
We would have to discuss exactly what you would want to do. And since we're dealing in alternative assets, my suggestion is that you may not be dealing with your broker anymore, i.e. stocks, bonds, all the traditional investment vehicles. Now, you can certainly hold those. There's nothing wrong with that. But at some point in time, if you truly believe, like so many experts do, that the whole financial system is going to collapse, if it were me and I had a portfolio, I would be liquidating and getting into alternative assets. And to answer your question, those would be held in accounts by the trustee. So the trustee in charge of the trust handles that, and then you become appointed as the manager or an officer of the trust to work in concert with the trustee in terms of making suggestions for movements, investments, liquidations. So you become the portfolio manager acting on behalf of the trustee, but it's technically held in the name of the trustee.
So in answer to this person's question, would I be correct in summarizing what you said by saying that perhaps the trading authority and control is a flexible thing depending upon the wishes of the client?
Yes, it can be, sure.
Okay. So those are the questions that have come up at the moment. How would you like to proceed next?
Well, I don't have anything more to offer. That was my presentation for tonight. So if there aren't any more questions, then we can wrap it up.
Would you like to add a little part about affiliate opportunity with your group of companies?
Surely. We've got an affiliate program. It's free to join. And in the affiliate program, obviously, we offer some fairly sophisticated solutions for a wide variety of problems that people typically have. And so in that, we've got various levels of membership in the law club. And depending on what level of membership one might elect to participate in, as an affiliate, if you referred that member, your commissions could range anywhere from $150 to close to 10 times that. And so it's kind of a high ticket sale. And we offer personalized hands-on coaching where you meet once a week or more often if necessary with a private coach to guide you. We've got the systems set up. We've got the activities set up. We've got, you don't need to know much of anything. We just guide you what to do, how to do it, and off you go. So if you'd like to explore more about the affiliate option, get with Taansen and he'll get you hooked up. Anything else?
We have a couple more questions that have come up. And before we proceed with those, let me just mention for all those who are still on that there are weekly meetings. There are ways of connecting with Mark and his Monaco Management Group and his Lighthouse Law Club and the P.A.M system. That would be available at bic-lighthouse.com. Once again, bic-lighthouse.com. Now, the next question is, can an already established IRA be transferred to the P.A.M system without major tax issues?
Yeah. A part of that may depend on the custodian of the IRA and how conservative they might be. But I've had a number of people who had a self-directed IRA. Basically, what you'd be doing is investing into the certificate units of the trust. And so depending on the amount of flexibility your custodian has over the IRA, you may need to get a new custodian in place that would basically give you a free hand, and have a self-directed IRA. But self-directed IRAs are very common, and it's a simple matter to get those turned over. And so I guess the answer is yes.
All right. And the same person, Lori, also has another question. Do you think credit unions would be affected in a collapse or event as they are nonprofit banks?
They would be less affected. That's for sure, because as I understand it, they don't use the Fed window and they're not so closely tied to the Fed. If they do mortgages, they typically hold the mortgages and they don't sell those off, package those up and sell them off to funds. So they're not nearly as tied into the national and international financial system as, let's say, a nationally chartered bank would be. So I would think they would be less affected.
Okay, the next question is the trustee who manages our assets transparent so we know who the trustee is?
Oh, absolutely. No question about it. And you'll get all that information if you go through that series of videos mentioned at the end there of the video presentation. So, yes.
Is there a similarity, this is my question, to the Brilliance and Commerce House of Freedom Trust, in that the P.A.M system would allow the client to be the trustee if he or she is well educated enough to know how to do so?
No.
Okay.
This is set up in the international arena, and there are some very specific characteristics that that protect you, really. So you want to put yourself at arm's length from those assets and from the trust. And we have a very special vehicle created to act as trustee. That vehicle has a board that manages it.
Okay.
Council board. It's a foundation of private interest, is what it is.
Okay, and the next question from Paul is there a way that someone can get comfortable and feel secure using the trust if they have had a negative experience with an irrevocable trust in the past?
Oh, absolutely. And again, that's what this series of videos that I referenced is created to do. It's, everything is based on knowledge. Fear comes typically from a lack of knowledge. We have fear of the unknown. It's like, well, I know a little bit, but do I know enough, or do I know what questions to ask, or what don't I know? That's where a lot of fear comes in. And so that's where transparency, knowledge, and education is so critical, that once you have a solid base of knowledge and support in various areas, then you can proceed with a lot more confidence.
And someone says where to find the videos?
Privatebusiness.biz. Privatebusiness.biz. B-I-Z.
Okay. Would you refer anyone to your collection of videos at Lighthouse Law Club also?
Sure. Well, we have nearly 100 videos. If you like this information, there's a lot more. But I would first suggest go to the bic-lighthouse.com. Look for the links that might be interesting there. And if for some reason you're not finding what you're looking for, just go to YouTube and look up Lighthouse Law Club. Lighthouse Law Club. Simple. You'll find us.
All right. And for those who are listening to this as a playback and were not present for the live broadcast and have questions, how can they get questions to you and get answers?
Oh, well, we have a ticket system on the webpage. I believe you have a link to our webpage on your page, Taansen.
Okay.
Lighthouse.com. There'll be a link to our webpage, and you can use the ticket system there.
And you hold weekly live meetings, yes?
Not always. There's so many different activities that we're involved in, between building internet businesses, supporting our affiliates. We have special events like what we did with you last week. We then have member meetings. We have meetings for our investment club. Excuse me. There's so many different activities. We don't really have the luxury of time to do weekly meetings for each and every one of those. So we kind of divide it up.
Okay, but if they go to bic-lighthouse.com and then they join the newsletter, then you would send announcements about such opportunities?
That's what everybody should do is get on the newsletter, go to bic-lighthouse.com, click on the link there to join the newsletter, and that'll be pretty much the starting point for all things Lighthouse and Monaco management.
Okay.
So the biggest complaint we have from our members is we have too much information.
Well, it's not being taught at Harvard, or UCLA or Stanford, as far as I know.
No.
So you kind of have to become a university unto yourself.
Well, honestly, the way universities are these days, if I had kids, I would not send them to college. I'd send them to the Lighthouse Law Club.
Exactly.
They'd be so much further ahead after 4 years. It'd be unbelievable.
Yes.
People who go to Harvard will not gather the knowledge in a lifetime that we have between what you're doing, Taansen, and then the law club.
Yes.
So just a personal observation.
Well, we'll welcome you back for future meetings, Mark, for sure. And when future topics accumulate that would be imperative to deliver to everyone, we will definitely have you back. We look forward to it.
Great. Well, I've enjoyed sharing this time with all of you, and I wish you nothing but prosperity, protection, and freedom in all that you do. With that, I'll just say good night and God bless.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.